What's going on, traders? We're going to get straight into it. Like, subscribe, comment your thoughts below. Let's get into the video. Now, in my last video, I told you guys to be cautious, okay? Be very, very cautious when trading this week because things were looking a little sketchy. Now, let's first look at the NQ here. So when we were looking at the NQ and the ES and so on and so forth, this is the 4-hour time frame, by the way. Let's actually go to the daily. I kept telling you guys about these channels, right? And believe it or not, we're still in these channels. And that's great. That's a good sign. That's at least for potential for a bounce here off the 18,700, which we talked about in our last video and maybe another video as well. And even when we're looking at the ES, we see the same thing, right? We're still within our channel. We're still trading under our daily supply and demand zone, which is a bit sketchy, but still, regardless, we're still trading in this channel. Now, if you're new to this YouTube channel, and you're wondering what I'm talking about as far as these channels, we're talking about this rising channels. And on the ES, NQ, Triple Q, SPY, these channels are all across the board. Right here, bounce, you bounced here, you bounced here, you bounced here, and right now you're attempting to bounce here, but we just can't get above this daily supply and demand zone, which is this rectangle here. And if you think I'm making it up, I mean, even up here, we rejected. We rejected up here, we rejected here, and then we rejected up here, which is essentially where I somewhat called a top scenario here. In Q, you're looking at the same exact thing. Okay, you're trading in this channel. You bounced here, you bounced here, you bounced here. You guys get the idea, okay? And that's great that we are at the bottom of our channels, and that leads to potential for a bounce here. But my issue, and I mentioned this last video, my issue here is the stocks, the big tech stocks. Everything looks like they wanted to drop. Everything looked like it just wanted to drop, right? And I even gave you guys examples, and we're going to get into that in a bit. I mean, but first, let's look at the triple Qs real quick. Triple Qs, I told you guys, after 457, we're looking at a move to 455. We give up 455, it gets really bad, and we can head to 450. Lowest I'm looking at is about 446, 447 range. Okay, so again, we're still holding in this channel. We're holding this daily supply and demand zone. Things are still fine if you are bullish. We look at the SPY. Same thing. SPY, well, not the same thing, actually. I lied. Okay. SPY is below its channel. I will say that much. And we mentioned this last video as well. But we're still holding 537, which I gave you guys a target of, right? I said we could revisit 537. And surprisingly, it happened like the next day. I didn't think it would happen immediately the next day. But we revisited 537. We refilled this. We actually filled this gap all the way, and we do have potential for a double bottom here. Okay, we have our bottom here, and then our neckline is about 548, which I've mentioned multiple times in multiple videos that we need to watch out for 548. We get above that, we're heading to 550. We get above 550, we're heading towards 552, 553 range. But the key level that I am paying attention to, that I really want to see us get above, is 556 if we are looking to revisit previous highs or even make new highs. Right? So right now, we're looking at a potential double bottom, okay? It's not an actual double bottom until the neckline is broken. Therefore, it will be confirmed. Right now, we're looking at potential here. So, this is what I was warning you guys about. This is what I was warning about on my last video. That sure, we're at the bottom of these channels and there's potential for a bounce here. I told you guys that I do expect a near-term bounce, and we got exactly that. The triple Qs bounced from 457 all the way. It went all the way up to like 468, 467 range, and then it immediately gave all that back. And I believe this happened like last week. Okay, somewhat last week, and then some of this move happened yesterday as well. So we did get our bounce, and there is potential to bounce here. But again, the issue is that we're still below these daily supply and demand zones on both the SPY and now the triple Qs, which we were actually above yesterday. And that's why I kept saying triple Qs looks better than the SPY. But now they're both in the same territory. So what are my expectations? Okay, so my expectations, let's first go over what's happening tomorrow. So tomorrow, we have a lot of news heading into tomorrow, actually. We have non-farm employment change, we have Chicago PMI, we have employment cost, and then we have FOMC statement, FOMC press conference. And that's great and all. You guys know how I feel about news if you've been on this channel for a while. The only thing I care about and the only thing I think the market cares about is earnings. And we saw a perfect example of that. I told you guys in the last video about Microsoft. Microsoft did not look good. It looked like it went. I even gave you guys a price target of 400. I said Microsoft looks like it can drop as low as 400. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, clear as day. Okay. Despite earnings, and like I told you guys, I said I truly believe that TA can tell you what's going to happen for earnings. And I had this marked in the last video, clear as day. And I told you guys Microsoft can drop to 400. My overall point here is that a lot of these big tech stocks still look like they want to drop, despite us being at the bottom of these channels, despite how strong these channels look as far as the ES and the NQ. A lot of these stocks look like they want to drop. Let's look at Netflix. I told you guys about Netflix last video. Look what happened since we talked about Netflix last video. It's continuing to drop. I told you guys 600 is one of my targets. The lowest I'm looking at is the supply and demand zone all the way down here at 580. Okay, 580 is what I'm looking at for Netflix. Let's go to the daily time frame here. Okay, so you guys can see exactly what I am talking about. Look at this. Look at this rising wedge. Okay, you guys know I don't make this stuff up. We bounced here, we bounced here, we rejected all up in this area, and then we attempted to get back to the top of the wedge and we failed. We rejected back here, and we broke below the wedge. Okay, I still think Netflix can head towards 580. My price targets is 610. After 610, I'm looking at 600 and then 580. Let's go to another stock, Tesla. Tesla looks like it wants to drop, guys. Everything looks like it wants to drop. Now, granted, Tesla is holding this trend, so there is potential here. But regardless, I told you guys in my last video that in the 230 range, Tesla looks prime for puts. So congratulations if you paid attention to that. I mentioned that in the last two videos actually. I said at the 230s range, Tesla is good for puts, and my price target still remains the same at 207, 205 range. Lowest I'm looking at as far as Tesla, there is possibility for Tesla to head towards that 194 target. Okay, so something else, and if you're wondering where I'm getting that target from, it's at the bottom of the supply and demand zone right here, 193.6, 194, give or take. Tesla looks like it wants to drop. Let's look at Bitcoin real quick. Bitcoin, I told you guys about Bitcoin. Bitcoin looks like it wants to drop, and it is dropping actually. We rejected this supply and demand zone. This is actually a weekly supply and demand zone up here. We rejected this trend. Let's go to a better time frame. Let's go to the daily. Okay, we are currently rejecting the supply and demand zone. Huge supply and demand zone, by the way. We're rejecting this trend right here. We rejected multiple times. Rejection, 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 and this trend is about, I would say, 70,500 if we get back into the supply and demand zone, and we just failed. We couldn't get past. We couldn't break through. And I think Bitcoin is going to head lower. My price target on Bitcoin, I told you guys this before, is 52K. Now we didn't revisit, we visited 53K, which was pretty close, and I mentioned this before. I told you guys my price target was 57K. We saw that target, and then I told you guys 52K. We got really close to that target, but it's still on the table as far as I'm concerned. I think Bitcoin is going to drop further. Now, the lowest I'm looking at is about 46K, 43K. If you're new to the channel and you're like, there's like no way, okay, where is he getting these targets from? I'm telling you guys, the people that's been here, the OGs, they know when I call out these targets, majority of the time, I would say at least 90% of the time, they hit no matter how far-fetched they are. Microsoft is a perfect example of that. Bitcoin has been a perfect example of that. We hit 57K, we hit 52, we got close to 52K. Okay, I won't take credit for that, but we got pretty close to it. And I told you guys about SPY. I told you guys about triple Qs. I told you guys about a lot of stock targets. Remember when the market was rallying and we were talking about Apple price target and Microsoft breaking 430, what was it, 435, and it rallied? I mean, I can do this all day, guys. Okay, I can do this all day. This is my full-time job. I know what I'm talking about, or at least I try to know what I'm talking about. Okay, but Bitcoin again looks like it wants to drop. I mean, simple as that. And the reason why I'm going over Bitcoin is that coin. Let's look at coin. All right. So I mentioned this in the Discord, and right now we are in 200 puts in the Discord. 200 puts for August 16th on coin. Head and shoulders pattern, clear as day. You got your shoulder here, your head here, your shoulder here as well. Now, Coinbase does have earnings as well. It looks like it wants to drop. I'm sorry. It does. It looks like it wants to drop. And right now, price target I am looking at for coin is 200, and then lowest I'm looking at is like all the way down here, guys. Look at all these gaps down here first off. All these gaps. I'm going to be humble and be conservative and say 180 is my price target, but I mean, if we're talking about Bitcoin going to 52k, 46k, these gaps might get filled. Okay, these gaps can get filled, and Coinbase does have earnings as well, so keep that in mind. But the head and shoulders is clear as day. Again, we're in 200 posts for August 16th. We got in at around 232. Right now, Coinbase is at 224 after hours, so we're currently in profit. And then I gave the option to small accounts to take profit before close if they don't want to hold. All right, but Coinbase looks like it wants to drop. What else? Did we go over Netflix? We went over Netflix. Meta. Meta looks like it wants to drop. It's not looking good. I mean, and Meta has earnings as well. It's not looking good. It's just not. And Meta is at 450 after hours. 450. It closed at 463 and it dropped to 450 after hours. I told you guys, Meta can drop to 400. Okay, I don't make this stuff up. I know what I'm talking about here. Right here, we broke below this trend. We broke below this supply and demand zone at around 470. We bounced here. We bounced here. We bounced here. We finally broke through. Meta is primed to drop to 400. Wouldn't even be surprised it goes lower than that. And remember what happened last time Meta had bad earnings. Remember what happened last time? It took the market with it. And I mean, the market went insane and dropped very hard with it. And then it recovered the next day, like almost immediately. Okay. But still, I mean, you see it here. This is when Meta had earnings. It gapped down and then it recovered like the next few days or so. This is the daily time frame, by the way. But Meta looks like it wants to drop. I mean, the proof is in the pudding, guys. 1 + 1 = 2. Let's look at SMH. I talked about SMH, and SMH proved me wrong. I thought maybe semiconductors can get some love. It broke below this trend. This trend right here. We bounced here. We bounced here. We attempted to bounce here, both off the supply and demand zone, and we are breaking the trend, guys. We are breaking the trend. Below 229, I say SMH is going to drop. ARM has earnings tomorrow as well. It's another semiconductor as well as Intel. Those can contribute to the drop further down to the downside. But things are not looking good. Okay, we broke this trend on SMH. It's not looking good, guys. It's really not. SOXL, same thing. Breaking trend, broke multiple trends. And right now, yes, it's in the supply and demand zone. But if SOXL gives up 36, I would say 35 psych level, it can drop much further. And again, we have two more semiconductor earnings. We probably have more. Don't quote me on that. But regardless, things are just not looking good, guys. It's just not. Let's look at Nvidia. I don't see it on my watch list. But let's look at Nvidia. Now, I haven't plotted Nvidia because I just haven't been trading Nvidia, but I imagine it doesn't look good. Right now, it's somewhat recovering after hours, which is expected. I mean, I do expect maybe somewhat. I wouldn't be surprised we get a dead cat bounce tomorrow, but still, Nvidia looks terrible, guys. Right now, we're heading towards this gap at around 100. And we could bounce off 100. I tell you guys all the time, support and resistance have very strong support and resistance. Gaps have very strong support and resistance, and we can bounce off 100 if we haven't already. Okay, I wasn't paying attention to what Nvidia was doing after hours, but again, things just don't look good. Okay, so hopefully you guys get the point here. The market looks terrible. Okay, NQ trading within this channel, that's great. Okay, that's fine. ES trading in this channel, that's great. That's fine. A SPY trading within this channel, cool. Well, SPY is somewhat below it, but still trading above 537 is still a good sign. Triple Qs, same thing. Trading within the channel. The issue is that a lot of them are trying to get below the supply and demand zones. Okay, right now Triple Qs is currently below supply and demand zone after hours. All right, so hopefully I get across here. despite the ETFs and the futures trading within their channels, stocks, the big tech stocks that contribute to either them rallying or dropping, are the main reason that things are dropping, because they all look like they want to drop. It looks like we're going to have more bad earnings coming in. Okay, again, I don't care what any trader tells you. I'm telling you now, TA can determine where a stock is going to go for its earnings. Microsoft, I proved that in the last video. Okay, things don't look good, guys. Okay, I will say that much. And again, just like I said in the last video, proceed with caution. Proceed with caution. Simple as that. All right. I told the Discord, hey, I'm sticking to one or two contracts, max maybe three. Okay, because things look shaky. Big tech looks like it wants to drop. Qs, everything else as far as futures, ETFs, they look like they want to potentially bounce. But if these big techs continue to have bad earnings, and I mentioned this before, that the market is going to rally until its earnings, until big tech earnings. I mentioned this before, but if they continue to have bad earnings, things are going to get really bad. Okay, simple as that. So one thing I will say, let's look at Apple. So the question is here: what can save the market? What can cause a rally? Is it Jerome Powell? Is it FOMC? Me? No, I don't believe any of those things are going to save the market. If anything, I think they're just noise. I tell you guys all the time. The market cares about earnings. Everything else is noise. Simple as that. If you don't believe me, check out last earnings season. What happened? Nvidia semiconductor solo carried the market, and no matter what bad news came in, bulls immediately bought everything up. Earnings carries the market. Simple as that. You have bad earnings, or if the market makers anticipate bad earnings, guess what? It's going to get priced in. If the market anticipates good earnings, it's going to get priced in. Okay. All last season, we saw good earnings being priced in. Now we're seeing bad earnings being priced in. And right now, everything looks bad. And what I will say is the one thing that can save the market is Apple. Apple earnings. Simple as that. Apple has earnings Thursday after hours. Apple, Amazon, Coinbase, all those things have earnings after hours. If something was going to save the market, it has to be Apple. Simple as that. So hopefully you guys got something out of this video. Discord link is in the description below. If you want my plays that I've talked about in this video, description is in below. If you want my text message alerts, SMS sent directly to your phone. Website is below. You just sign up through the website. You get a free ebook. You get a free newsletter every single week as well. So check that out. You don't have to subscribe to the SMS messages if you want to, but you can subscribe to the website if you want a free ebook as well as free newsletter. Other than that, that's all I have, guys. Hopefully you guys have a good trading day, trading week, and until the next video, have a good one.